Welcome back to this special edition of State of the Nation that we do expect the President to be addressing the nation and will be in Parliament, where he will be holding a joint session of both houses, and Kenyans from all walks of life right here and even beyond will be keeping our eyes keen on our screens just to know exactly the plans that the President has had and even take stock of what exactly has been going on for the last 1 year. Remember, it is constitutionally constituted as Article 132 stipulates that the head of state will give an annual address to the nation and give us the state of affairs in the country. And now, earlier on, just in case you joined us, I'm joined by three gentlemen. We have Engineer Jackton Achieng here. We have Dr. Reverend Alphonse Kanga of NCCK, and now we are joined by Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan, who is a leadership and governance expert. Karibu sana, Doc.
Asante sana. Thank you very much. I apologize, I delayed a bit.
Yeah, okay, no problem. We have been looking at some of the things that we do expect the President to address today, and before we took the short quick break, we were looking at human rights, and Doc, you had mentioned in regards to that, but before we give Dr. Hassan 2 minutes to compose himself, Engineer, the human rights record in regards especially to what has happened in the last 1 year, we've had cases of abductions both last year and this year, and we have also had concerns in regards to human rights violation. Case in point is the newly passed and signed into law the Cyber Crimes Act, which a number of people have argued that it curtails some of the basic fundamental rights as enshrined in the Constitution.
Oh, thank you, Troy. Once again, when it comes to human rights and fundamental requirements and and operations, you realize that in government or any institutional agency, what usually happens is that when you get feedback, negative or positive, it should be able to help you towards improving on what you are doing. And when we look at the functions of the human rights, human rights individuals or experts, you realize that they always point out to areas where the government or institutions go outside of the law. And when that is raised, it's a better way for the sitting government to look, introspect actually, and ask themselves several questions. What then do we need to do if they have the interest of the people? What do we need to do to help the people, or so that they can be able to be, uplifted? So, such cases, of abductions that we are mentioning here, they are only meant to intimidate, so that you can be able to shut and not to speak. And therefore, you will not have an opportunity to give feedback to the government or to have, proper control in terms of what may be happening in the dark. So there are some laws that probably that you are talking about, the cybersecurity, computer use and cybersecurity. These are laws. They could be good, but such laws needs to be extremely clear on the extent of crime when you post something. It's not a matter of like Engineer Mwembe has posted an article or something online, then, if it's not defined in law, then it can be picked as going against, the policies that we are having. And this calls for independent bodies. I think also Dr. had mentioned this, that the judiciary now needs to come out and clarify some of these things so that they are clear, so that decisions that are being made out of them are clear and you cannot question anything out of that. So I look at it as policies that are good for the government, and they must also be good for the people, so that implementation becomes easy and clearer, so that there is no intimidation, and the public can be able to know the extent to which they can be able now to engage with the public and also with the government institutions.
Yes.
Yes.
And interesting way of putting it, and in as much as we are talking about it being a law, it should be very clear in regards to when does the free domain ends.
Exactly.
That's the freedom.
Exactly.
Doc, I'm looking at the cost of living, and I think it's it's the right time to touch on the cost of living because it's touching on everyone. I remember yesterday we were speaking with one of my producers, and he was telling me that sometimes some things run out in your house and you just continue without them. And it's something that you've been using over and over and over again. When it comes to fueling vehicles, you find that if you are using your vehicle every day, now you find some people now have to, step back and maybe do 3 or 4 times a week. Let's go to the food on the table. Some people can't actually afford, and there's a lot of Kenyans who cannot afford a decent 3-course meal in a day. And the head of state, this is something that he should be touching. Question is, what short-term and even long-term fiscal tools should the President Ruto prioritize that will not even lead us to more debt?
Thank you very much. First and foremost, I think my colleagues have talked about the issue of human rights. I just wanted to mention one thing before I move into the cost of living.
Yes.
And that is, you realize in our context, human right is completely different from the context of the people we borrowed from. Because human right came from Western world. We did had actually our human right way of doing things. So African culture had its own merit and demerits in dispensing human rights within the society. That has been modernized and it started borrowing a different culture. That has given us or exposed us to something that is more concrete and not able to comprehend by ordinary people. For example, you realize that the human right as per our laws is both from the human right enforcers, that's the frameworks that are in place, and the people themselves. Now, the concept of the framework that the people who are supposed to ensure human right violations are not in the country, are not practiced, those ones are the ones we always look into. We don't look at the other side. Imagine reverends wake up in the morning and he's found with a shape of a woman down here, and it is his head who is there. Do you know how traumatizing for him and the rest of the people who know him and the people who follow him? That is the things that the government probably were looking into. The fact that you infringe the right of another person without apology, that is the things that is the Cybercrime Act actually concentrate on. The fact that our children have freedom to access pornographies and some other lesbianism and gayism in the media, which we are telling them they shouldn't. We talk to them, but someone else has opened the window for them. So those are the things that actually Kenyans need to look at, because those will going to traumatize, those will going to damage the future generation, not the people who understand what is right and wrong now, but those ones who are on the other side are the ones who will eventually normalize those things in their life in future, and the society will be lost. Basically, that is what it means. People will like fighting on the other side. The usual thing that people post when there is demonstration and those other things, it's beyond that. It's a bigger thing. So I think that's how we should view the human right in the context of our society. When it comes to the issue of the cost of living, we know very well from the onset of the time when the government has taken drastic strategies in curbing the cost of living to a lower rate where people could live and are able to find for themselves, is that the government looked into the area of the farmers, the producers. And that has actually worked, because recently I drove from here up to Kisumu, and I saw, unlike before where people would love to purchase products from outside or neighboring country or Comesa, people have gone back to their farms. We saw a lot of farms along Maimayu, Narok, up to Kisumu Road. And what are they producing? Not cash crops, they are food crops they are producing. You see a lot of maize, a lot of beans, a lot of ungangano on those farms. So that, I think, must have worked. But the challenge comes, the issue of the shilling versus the issue of things which come out of the country. You know, whenever we buy things from outside, we give out hard currency. When we are giving out hard currency subsidizes our own money, because the value of our money and the hard currency is higher. So we are discharging more money outside than actually within the country. And that's why you see this minimal cash flow within the country as of now, because people are saying, hey, siku hizi pesa imeenda wapi? Kwani president amefungia pesa? No, that is not the case. We want to make and produce our own things internally so that we do the purchase within the country and the money circulates within. What currently is going on is that those who have money sends off this money outside the country and they bring products, goods and services. Now, when you bring things from outside there and the money is already gone, where do you expect to get money to do trade and purchase all those commodities on the ground? So there are quite a number of complexity in the way we are managing our cost of living. However, the issue of fertilizers, which I know many Kenyans have talked about it, and quite a number of times the president also mentioned it, and many other people who want to advocate for the good things that the government has done, will always not miss to mention the fertilizers, subsidized fertilizers. The fuel, I think you have seen the fuel has stabilized for a long period. It's going down slightly, coming down every other month.
But Kenyans would argue, Doc, in as much as the fuel prices have been stable for the last couple of months, is that they are on the higher side. Actually, if you look at the region, fuel is one of the most expensive. Bearing in mind the landing cost in Mombasa is about 80 shillings.
Yes, absolutely, you are right. We do have a challenge comparatively to other other neighboring countries. You know, taxation in country and taxation in other countries are not comparative. For example, Tanzania's tax is minimal on fuel, whereas our tax is very high. On we pay road levy. That
there
is
are
still
around 8
going.
charges.
There are around 8 charges, and if you
levies,
actually look at the way they are distributed, meaning those are all taxes, but they're given different names. But again, let me ask one thing. Are the roads being maintained? Are we getting the result of those hard taxations that we are getting? Are we getting the results out of it? For example, there are quite a number of roads that are under construction, particularly us from northern region. You know, I always tell people, there is no government better than this one that ever has come into this country, which has given us an olive branch in improving our infrastructure. Because 63 down the line, the road from Mandera to Nairobi is rough road. That is why you find many of our businessmen come to Nairobi to do business, because accessibility of that locality or that region has become impossible. When they constructed the road between Nairobi and Garissa became a big city. You cannot compare Garissa to Mombasa. It's bigger in terms of development and in terms of population coverage. Go to Wajir and Mandera, the population is running away. We are part of the people who ran away from there and live here in Nairobi, simply because we cannot access our homeland. If I have an emergency now, if I don't take an aircraft, then I'll take 3 days to get home. So that is no longer an emergency. Emergency is the timing response that one will have. Therefore, my thinking is that as much as the fuel cost is high, I think we are seeing there are quite a number of infrastructure that is being improved along all quarters. I mean, all the region. If you go through the country, and you will find everywhere there are construction going on. And you see the president every other time mentioning that we must do 3 things. 1, we must improve on infrastructure. We must supply electricity, and every household must get electricity, and we must have food on the table. which is in essence factored under the subsidized product. Now, but Kenyans, my only thing that I should tell Kenyans is that Kenyans of late are quite focused on employment, through the one we usually call the white collar employment or outside employment. Actually, you could do a lot in this country and create your own empire and become one of the person who will be contributing to this nation in a very productive way.
Okay. Still on the cost of living, I would like to pick the minds of all of you in regards to the cost of living. And Doc did mention something that is very true, that indeed agriculture has improved, because we are looking at the subsidized fertilizer program. If we look at our maize reserves, they've kind of gone a little bit higher than it was 2-3 years. But families and households are struggling to put 3 meals per day on the table. And this is something that identifies with Kenyans. This is something the head of state should be addressing. What should be the remedy, and especially when he is talking to the country, to ensure that we don't sink further into debt and we don't add to the layer of taxes that we are seeing on basic products?
I want to begin from where we started before he came. We said that we have done utafiti, the research that was done recently with us, and partisan research. By the way, let's not say we are not partisan. I said before he came, we don't tell us as a church to be non-partisan. We are partisan in the area of peace and truth.
Absolutely.
So we are partisan. In the area of peace and truth, we are partisan of what's happening in the nation. So the research that we did recently is so clear that 85% of Kenyans are depressed and unhappy. And not only that, 75% they say, you political class, you're not doing very well. And when it comes to election, you go home. And where this idea is coming from is from the idea of what he's saying, human rights. Where we are as Kenyans are far much ahead from our neighbors. You don't lecture Kenyans what human rights are. Kenyans, when you talk about human rights, simple. They'll come and tell you, Constitution 2010, Article 10(2), it outlines justice is our foundation. And within that, there is integrity. Within that, there is transparency. Within that, there is accountability. So if you stick, and then out of that, there is chapter 6. So when you hear there is human rights somewhere, we are fighting about abduction. Abduction is because somebody is trying to cover something so that he does what he will not talk about it. Abduction is simply somebody who is trying to live in an evil style, and he doesn't want you to talk about it, so that you can go ahead and avoid what is clear in the Constitution. So how do we deal with this? We deal with this when there is justice and truth. Food.
Before the Reverend goes away from that point, there's one thing I wanted to ask Reverend in terms of, justice. There are institutions that have been put in place to make sure that those justice system within our constitution, it's good that you have quoted the constitution, are laid down and they are doing they are expected to do their work. It is not the civilians who are supposed to, or the larger population who is supposed to do that. So institutions are where we have a problem. I think we need to focus there than looking at the bigger population and where people say, okay, I have been abducted. I mean, there are measures. We do not know the reasons as why someone is abducted, because we don't know even the abductees. We are assuming that it is so-and-so who is abducting so-and-so. But there are measures. There are the courts. There are the Human Rights Commission, which is an independent commission. We have the issue of...
There are 13.
There are 13 actually in number. We all understand, yeah. Can we focus on this? Why? What deliveries have they done from the time they were given their task, other than pointing out at individuals who probably we assume they have been in certain situation and then they come out? Your research is very good. I totally agree. But again, research, me as a researcher and as a don in the university, research is a very good thing that guides everything. It's a fact. And therefore, these are the things we need to drive ahead. You should drive ahead and say, these findings must find a place in shaping the society we are talking about. Go ahead,
But
Reverend.
also,
Again?
in as much as we are so pointing fingers and everything, government has also been accused of
Correct.
abductions.
Absolutely.
And in some levels of some of these abductions, we have seen indeed it was government. Talking of the cases that where the courts have demanded somebody be produced in court, and all of a sudden when the deadline is there is the day that person, and that person indeed says, I was abducted by the security forces. We have seen on social media, we've seen them being handled and bundled in vehicles. Doc, you can respond to that.
I agree. I want to agree with him, as we said before he came, that there is 13 constitutional commissions.
Yeah.
And what has depressed Kenyans is because those 13 constitutional commissions, and most of them, they have an I in the beginning, is that letter I. Are they independent? When they are not playing the independent part of it, and Kenyans can see, that's what makes Kenyans depressed. And that's why we should sit here and even ask ourselves, we have a debt of 12.6 trillion. Is this part of paying those commissions? If we have a debt of 12.6, and then there are human rights abuse are still going on, and those commissions are in place, do we really need them? Is it possible that we can do better? That's why we had 2010 constitution. So, do we have a problem with the human rights? Yes, we have. Who to blame? Commissions.
Okay. We are on the same page.
Maybe I can also chip in, because I'm feeling we are scratching this thing on the surface. The question is, why do we need the commissions? Commissions are formed because there's a problem.
Yes.
Why is the source of this problem? That's the core issue that we need to deal with. If we have abductions happening, there is a commission that has been formed in terms of to handle such kind of issues. Then the problem is not the commission from where I sit. The problem is the society.
Correct.
The problem is the society and also the government institutions, if those that are propagating, abductions. Then we need now to sit down and ask ourselves, where is the integrity and where are the morals in the society? It goes back to now the points that we are talking about, the issues that deals with unemployment. You see, if you engage your citizens and they are earning, they will be able to run their life and now deal with the issues of cost of living. If we have idle citizens, we will have crime rate going up, we'll have several bad things happening, and therefore the commissions are formed. They are good for a country to enable the country to to manage the morals of the society and what happens around us. But we need to come down to the fundamental issues, which includes employment. We need our people to get employed. And when they're employed, they're engaged. They'll be able to deal with the issues of the cost of living. If it's movement, they'll be able to move from one place to the other. If it is business, I would be able to bring my tomato from the remotest part of this country without them going bad to the markets. These are the things we are looking at. Do we have storage facilities within the remotest part of the country where they can preserve some of the perishable commodities? Business is key. When citizens are engaged, we can be able to ensure that the crime rate will come down. Even the depression will come down, because there will be money in circulation.
And Troy, one of the things the head of state should address today is the narrative on the ground of this, what we call human trafficking. Human trafficking is a top issue on the ground right now. And these different narratives are now in the field. Who is doing this? Who is doing this? Why do you have this human trafficking? It's because simple food is the issue of
basic
food,
needs.
Basic needs. That's why you'll find people being abused in Dubai, our children being abused in the foreign countries, not because of anything, but because of basic food. And so the question is for today. Anybody found trafficking and doing slave trade, that issue should be dealt clearly. And I hope the head of state should touch on that. And because it's the symbol of unity, and there is an outcry all over that Kenyans are being trafficked in different countries, they need to find out who is doing it. Why is it doing it? Of course we know. It's because of we have not put our
and Doc, we will be looking at the foreign policy the country has adopted and some of the hurdles that we have we have met along our way
Yes.
in terms of foreign policy, because we have a number of issues that are still pending in regards to how we align ourselves, how we treat other people in this country, and how our Kenyans are being treated. It's a good thing you guys have mentioned the cases, especially of the
Middle East.
Of the Middle East. And also we have had Kenyans being abducted by our neighbors in Uganda and Tanzania. And the presidents have also noted that and said, yes, indeed. A practical example is the Ugandan president who said, yes, indeed, I was the one who was having these guys. We'll be looking at the foreign policy. Put them in the fridge so that they
No, I think, Troy, one thing
we'll
that
be looking at that.
I know.
But I wanted us to look at
I know.
corruption. Yes,
I
bro.
think one thing just on the point that you have mentioned and Reverend has mentioned is the issue of slave trade, modern slave trade. But there is a question there. The government is propagating for that. The government is saying we'll look for employment outside the country. We will export our human capital. Now, it's okay to do that if it is done well, systematically, and it is documented. That is fine. But the issue is every other person who deals with the labor issues or employment outside the country issues, which is also defined as the modern slavery. I think it was on the newspaper. When was that? Yesterday or the day before yesterday. The modern slavery. I think it's something that the government needs to rethink again and say, okay, we thought this was an avenue we are opening for our people. But again, it has came with a backlash. The backlash is that when they get there, then they get into a complex situation where they are now modern way of slavery. They are actually enslaved. I saw many, we see a lot of people crying inside the social media talking about this. There's a lady every night, she works in Middle East, and she has nicknamed her employer Waititu. And I'm sure you guys, those of us, I don't know if Reverend is familiar with TikTok, but that lady brings stories on every event of her life. Every day, whatever happens, she documents it. For me, as a professor of psychology, I see that is a way of seeking for help, because she thinks every other time that anytime her life is at risk. And that's why she's telling her story, everybody, so that she leaves some footprints of what she has gone through later when no one can speak for her after she cannot speak anymore. So those are things that needs to be looked into before we look into issues of exporting our labor capital.
Yes, and the reason I said that we will be looking at it a little bit later on is because some of those people who are suffering in the Middle East, they didn't use the right channels to get there. So even the government doesn't even know those guys are there. But we'll be looking at that. But let's look at something that is quite an elephant in the country, that is corruption.
Oh.
And we've been fighting it for 60 plus years. And I'm looking at the concrete measures that you expect the president to recommend in his address. And also look at how effective, gentlemen, how effective, engineer, has digitization helped? I was paying for a relative at the Kenyatta University Teaching and Referral Hospital, and every cash you have to send, and I think it's in all government institutions now, you have to send that to e-citizen. The government has digitized, even when it comes to land matters, the process is still ongoing. And so how far has it been in promoting transparency, and where do they fall short? Because corruption is still there. Engineer.
Thank you, Ben Troy, for this question. You know, when we talk about the e-system, e-payment system that we are having in, I'll simply go straight into that concern. If you've paid through the system, e-citizen, you ask yourself, there is, if you're paying 1,000 shillings, there is another 50 shillings on top of it. The question is, where does that go? Is it a government revenue?
We are going back to the receipt that the doctor...
Exactly. Because these are key issues that we are dealing with. Number two, we also have a matter of who is behind the procurement of the e-citizen. Is it a Kenyan? Is it a foreigner? We need,
Yeah,
these are
questions have
things,
been asked.
yeah, these are things that needs to come out strongly, because where we have human interface, you will always find problems. Yesterday, or the day before yesterday, the systems were interfered with, and I think there was a circular in that regard. So you ask yourself, these are systems that are supposed to be safeguarded by, by ourselves and our security systems. But you can find that there was an attempt. So it means we have e-payment systems, and they can be able to help us in terms of, consolidating funds into one coffer. However, do we have proper systems to prevent any loss that may come out of it? Because when it comes to counties, you've noted a number of counties also have lost money through the same e-payment system, where an e-payment system has got other systems where you pay and it goes to other accounts. And it has affected several agencies. So my take for this is that this is the best way to go. However, we still need to have our security systems into place to ensure that there is no entry in terms of losses. And the people who are behind the development of even these particular softwares, what surety do we have as a nation that these are going to be people who are going to be honest and have high moral standards so that they cannot be compromised? Because that is one of the areas that as we are not clear on in terms of the security and the protection of these particular systems that we are having. So for me, I look at it as the best, the best way to go. But we don't have, do we have that ability to ensure that we don't lose money, public money, to individuals through backdoor, when the systems are either hacked or they are compromised? Yes. So I just wanted to mention that, because that is just basically collecting of the money. The question I'm asking, we have a pending bills in this country.
Yes.
Because this is just a collection point.
Yeah.
But at the payment point, we have pending bills in this country. It's very unfortunate. One of our members actually committed suicide the other day in Kisumu, in one of the engineers. Okay. Reason is being claimed that he had debts that he had to pay, and the way you do your returns and all that. Yeah. Systematic things. It was a very unfortunate situation. Now, how does the government again spend out of the e-payment, the e-system? Because we won't have things to do with the pending bills. If you know very well that somebody has offered a service to a government, then you have all the documentation, then the money had been allocated. That money should be able to be paid to the service provider through the same system without having an interface. Yes. Yeah? So as long as we still have the human interface in these systems, it's still compromised, because it will be based on probably how do I know you? Exactly.
Doc, still on corruption, I'm looking at the revolving or the rotating doors at the Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC. And we have seen, ever since, let's say for the last year or so, we have seen governors, we have seen directors, we have seen a number of Kenyans be brought there because of corruption issues. And the government has decided to digitize not only land and also services, but still there are so many pilferages, there are so many holes that the money is still being drained. And you do remember the former head of state did mention that we're doing about 2 billion in corruption every day. There's something that the head of state should be addressing.
Yeah, I think recently I did an article in regards to the dark side of devolution. You know, when 2010 Constitution was enacted or inaugurated, Kenyans celebrated because there was a sign of self-rule at the periphery of every homestead. And people thought this will going to diffuse the pressures that Kenyans have gone through when it was generally managed from one central point. But that never to be. We have established 47 kingdoms, the historical kingdoms, where where the history of kingdoms. For those of us who have read history, you understand a king is always right. A king is always the rich one. And even the poor bring their products, their animals to them. So the king is always the wealthiest one. And definitely the 47 county governors are the wealthiest ones because they have shaped themselves, crafted themselves in a manner that they are the small kings or the so-called presidents of the counties. That is not what our constitution says. Misconception and taking out of proportion the constitution are things that are haunting us every day. Corruption is not an exception in other major institutions. Now, you mentioned a very critical thing. Why do we actually always cry of corruption and corruption doesn't stop? 3 things are happening. 1, first and foremost, we have normalized corruption. We as a society. Why? If we don't get something done, we pay for it. Nobody has asked you to pay for it. If you commit crime, you pay for it instead of going to court and facing justice.
Yeah.
And I know there, justice will be dispensed if everything is in order. But the fear that justice might not be served because of corruption, then you do your own justice on the road.
Give us
So
something.
give out something. So 1 is us as a society. 2, do we have a safe haven to land? No. That is why we are subjected to this situation. The pressure that is pushing the ordinary society to free themselves on the spot, other than taking them to the justice system that is established, is one of the problems that Kenyans are struggling with in terms of corruption. Secondly, political block. Politicians in Kenya, unfortunately, are free from corruptions. Why? They do corrupt, they are corrupt, theirs is not defined as corruption. A civil servant or someone who is a police officer who is on the streets or someone, if they do something, they speak loud and they steal. They are told they have stolen or they have done, that's corruption. But them themselves, their acts. And an example is, if you are just getting your salary as a member of parliament and your allowances, which is ideally meant to service your day-to-day needs, you go to several gatherings every weekend, you pay money. Do we ask ourselves, where does that money comes from? So the society receives a rotten money from a rotten hand. And therefore, partly even our religious quarters, they also receive anything that comes from politicians. The thing that has more blessings in the corridors of religiosity are the ones the ordinary person leaving his house and saying, I'm paying my sadaka here. But a politician coming to pay 1 million or 10 million, 5 million, he's not paying for the sadaka. He's paying for political influence. That is corruption. We are accepting it. Thirdly, is the institutions themselves. Are they, like the Reverend has said, are they independent? How many governors have been taken to that role?
Many.
Have you seen
I've
any
covered the
outcome?
number.
No. We may suspect that actually money is being changed hand. Hey, you have looted, give us our part, we leave you. That could be something going on. Those are speculations. You may find probably a bigger office calling saying, we wachana na hiyo mtu. Or you may find that the system itself does not give them opportunity to package this particular person and move it to the other bridge. You know the other bridge? It's ODPP. So if you are sure that ODPP will going to do otherwise than what you have already packaged and prepared for the person to face court, then you lose hope. So basically, I know there's nothing ahead of me. So why should I actually do all that efforts? You don't care attitude aspect of enforcing the law also comes in. So these are things that are ravaging this nation of ours. The president must come out very clearly in his speech in regard to corruption. We don't want corruptions to be talked about because many people have talked about it. We want action and severe action. And if, like China, you do corruption and, you know, it is
it's a capital offense.
A capital offense.
Yeah.
So if we change our legal laws in regards to corruption, and we say anyone involved in corruption, there will be no bond. First, like you'll stay inside remand until your case is determined, and once you are proved that you have committed that crime, you are either sentenced for life or you're hanged. Kenyans will not go out and do any corruption. Workers of the government will never do corruption.
Okay.
Private sector will not engage themselves in corruption.
Yeah.
And an individual Kenyan who is the source of the corruption will not going to commit that corruption.
Troy.
Yes, you really need to mention corruption,
Yes.
and also bring it out, because as part of the church, you have refused donations from politicians. It's a part of the clergy has refused and saying donations, harambees, we do not want that, because it's more or less bringing friction. And we have seen, just like Doc has mentioned, we have seen people convicted of corruption, and I can mention them. I can mention the likes of Obado, former Governor Obado, and also MP Waluke, who have been, a practical example, the Sirisia MP, Waluke, was convicted by the High Court and went to committee, but now he's a member of parliament. We don't know what exactly happened, and Kenyans want to see corruption being dealt with.
Troy,
Yeah.
before Baba passed on, he had suggested that we have a conclave that was going to bring the nation together. And if that's going to happen with our brothers from the political class, then corruption should be an agenda, major agenda be discussed in that conclave. Because corruption in Kenya is mangisi, mangidu. Right now, we defend thievery and spread disinformation so that we can cover ourselves. Right now, the narrative in the public, what is making 85% of Kenyans depressed and unhappy, is the issue of SHA. Because the issue of SHA has never been clarified. Who owns SHA? Where do you bank SHA? Who is being paid for SHA? Because he has millions for, Mheshimiwa has millions in terms of insurance, and then there is that Wanjiku has nothing.
Yeah.
But how are they going to, how is this millionaire going to be paid, and how is Wanjiku going to benefit? It's not clear. And so what do? We defend thievery, and then we spread this information just because the end justifies the means. And that's the biggest problem we have in the country as far as corruption is concerned. Well, corruption, even it started in heaven, but in heaven, the devil was thrown out when he started corruption. Corruption, you deal with it by throwing somebody out and then leave that kingdom. Until we come to that area, corruption is a big animal in the house. And we need to to accept chapter 6. So long as we don't deal with chapter 6, we are now talking about the election, the by-election in different places. Are we aware whether they have gone through chapter 6? Have they passed that interview? How come Sobando is still existing? How come these people go, the big fish goes and comes out of that game? It's because we are not willing to face corruption. So what are we supposed to do? We need to have a referendum, a conclave, as Baba suggested, and then discuss what, who, where, when. Then we deal with it all round. But for now, it's a big issue. But again, as we say today, is a State of the National address.
Yes.
The head of state need to mention that. At least tell us what has happened in this area. Where is SHA money? Who is benefiting from SHA? Who is being paid for? This millionaire, does he need really that SHA money? And is he benefiting? Those hospitals that we hear they were discontinued, were they really the only victim? Who was behind those victims? So that we don't just do, we defend thievery, spread this information, and then we go back to normal. Before that, it will be difficult to deal with any. Deal with us first. Again, where one of the areas where my mother came from, they say the fish started rotting from the head. So, Mangsi, Mangdu, corruption is over. If Mang see what the Mang will see, that's what the Mang will do.
All right, and we are hoping indeed the president will address this corruption issue because it's become a menace. We even have deals, you know. You've stolen, engineer has stolen 200 million, you're told now you get a few pieces of land. You have already stolen and you've been convicted by a court of law. So I think the head of state really owes Kenyans that address to come out clearly and tell us exactly what we're doing. We have seen ESCC, a few parcels of land have been recovered, but more really needs to be done. And because of the interest of time,
Troy, I think the issue of corruption is, I know we are defining it superficially also, but the question I'm asking, do we have instruments in this country that can enable the judiciary to ensure that the laws that they are passing or the laws that they are implementing are clear in terms of proof of corruption? Because that is lacking. We've seen cases going to courts, then they come out because of lack of evidence. Then where are we in that line in terms of the instruments that we are using? So if the president can be able to state how that can be able to be facilitated, then you enhance the judiciary, you ensure that the legal systems of this country, you enhance them so that we have the legal position of how to deal with corruption. And from there, somebody's taken to court, an individual, politician or not, it is clear on the way forward and the penalties are there, they are known, and the decisions that are made, the proclamations that are going to be made at the court are going to be clear to everybody. Then that is the only way to deal with corruption. Yeah, but if you don't have those clear parameters that defines proof of corruption, then it will be quite difficult, and it's something that we'll have to deal with in a long time.
All right, so let me give you each 10 seconds each for your closing remarks because we need, but we're going to continue this conversation because we're expecting the head of state before he enters parliament, and after we're going to be looking at that. So Doc, beginning with you.
No, I think our expectation basically today is to talk about the expectation of Kenyans as the head of state give us his address. And I think a lot Kenyans are waiting. And much of those things that Kenyans are waiting are positive things. And then secondly, measures to cap corruption are the things that we will really want to hear. Kenyans are tired of corruptions being talked about over and over and over. We want action, solutions, and measures that will forever end corruption. I know it has become systemic, but systemic, as we in Medic we say, any systemic disease is difficult because systemic means it affects the whole system. Multiple system. We have the respiratory system, the nervous system, all those things. Yeah. So it has become systemic. It's not an easy thing to fight, but drastic measures needs to be put in place in order for us to have a clear plan for how Kenyans will become a free state of corruption.
All right, Doc, 10 seconds.
I pray for our brothers and sisters in Mbere, Malava, and Kaspo. They go, and I'll ask them.
Reverend comes from Mbere because I'm seeing his.
It's because it's very charged. I can tell you that
they should take leadership of themselves. Don't mind about this political class. Yes. They have their own interest.
Okay.
Without the end being justified, just what the means, don't mind about them. Do what you want as per your conscience.
All right, Jackton, just close it for us.
Thank you very much, Troy. I just want to mention, when the president comes out to speak, we want to hear an opportunity that is going to open up for the youths and to ensure that there is a bit of employment for the youth so that they can be able to have something in their hands and to be able to buy, to get the power, to purchase. And this, the government can achieve through several means. We've talked about agriculture here, but we are not talking about value addition, because that is one of the areas that from the primary production, you can go to secondary and tertiary production, and this will be able to support this country to move to another level economically. Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer Jackton Achieng Mwembe. Just next to me, we have Reverend Dr. Alphonse Kanga from the NCCK, and just next to him we have Dr. Harun Isaac Hassan, who is a leadership and governance expert. Gentlemen, thank you indeed so much for your time, but unfortunately our time has run out. But we will be having another conversation just before the president gets into Parliament and after his address. But for now, many thanks indeed for joining us. I'm Ben Troy Njue, and my colleague on the sign language interpreter has been Karen Joroge initially, and then we have Susan Anwangeshi. Thank you so much indeed.